Okay, and I'll add people in as they're coming in, but I'll just ask that everyone stays muted during the session. It just helps with the jumping from screen situation. So I would like to welcome and unmute the fabulous Tracey Horton. Hi, Tracey.
I'm sorry, I thought you were unmuting me. Hello, everybody.
I tried.
Good morning from the Gold Coast.
Morning, Tracey. First of all, thank you so much for being a 2020 judge again for us this year. Really appreciate you taking out the time in your very busy schedule to set eyes on the business owners that have entered this year, give your amazing feedback and score, which I know has been a really tough job for our judges this year. So thank you.
My pleasure, my pleasure. I love to see younger women, you know, coming up in the ranks and see what they're doing, and it's exciting for me.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I think I got totally booted from my own chat then. I have no idea what happened. Love the technology. I would love for you to tell people who may not know anything about you or who you are, what you do and where you're based.
Okay. So I live on the Gold Coast with my husband. I have 4 beautiful adult daughters who are all married, 4 great son-in-laws and 9 grandkids. And Paul and I have been in business together for 30 years, doing project management and bookkeeping. I'm an accountant by trade, but a few years back when I hit just on 50, I made a decision that changed my life. I made a decision to go ahead and take some work I'd been doing in not-for-profit sectors around sexual abuse and domestic violence, and decided to write my story and put it to print, and decided to take it globally. And I did just that. And in the last 6 years, I've been in 19 countries. I've sold my book in 19 countries. I've been part of panels to help advocate to change the law. My goal in this lifetime is that by the time you guys see me disappear off the planet, there will be 0 tolerance for domestic violence or sexual abuse globally. It's time for it to happen. There's no more excuses. We are educated enough. We've got the resources. We've got the answers. And it's just time to do it. So now I work in a lot of mentoring, do a lot of international speaking and a lot of travel up until COVID grounded me. And so this year I've been doing a lot of stuff, putting it all online and just giving it access to the world.
I love it. One thing I can say about you, Tracey, is you've had such a colourful career. You have not sat in any one pocket in any sense of the word. You've really just, you know, taken the opportunities and really bridged those for yourself and really driven it that way. But I would love to know just a defining moment for you in your career, like a light bulb moment or a pivotal moment.
You know, sometimes those moments come out of necessity. So for me, I had been in corporate New Zealand. My husband felt called to come here. There was a great opportunity for us to start a building business. I was at home with 4 children under 5, and that was not my forte. I didn't come from a healthy home, so it was way out of my depth. And I found that I got a little bored, to be honest with you. So I decided to just jump into some business. And the thing that I found kind of worked was just bookkeeping and doing that sort of stuff. But then as time grew and I began to, I've always had a heart for people in domestic violence, sexual abuse, women that are struggling, because I know for women, the majority of women that experience trauma always suppress it, because we are givers, not takers. We are servers, not people that need it. We're always about the need of others. And so that's always been something I've been doing on the sideline. But I guess sort of 6 or 7 years ago, I just knew it was really time for me to step up. At turning 50, I'd made a decision that I had something I wanted to leave a legacy of. So I planned to exit the corporate world at 70, which is much closer than I realised. And I plan to leave a huge legacy of at least 100,000 women globally that are transformed from their trauma and changing the world with it.
I love it. And we were talking really briefly before we got started just about the changes that have happened this year. I guess everybody's really feeling the impacts, you know, and I don't think any industry has been immune to those changes. But I would love to know what you think the biggest challenge facing your industry right now is, and how you're kind of handling that in, you know, what you can do. You mentioned about putting your business online more and those sort of things.
Yeah, so for me, as an international speaker, I was pretty much booked out this year overseas. So they all ground to a halt in March. So my income ceased to exist from that avenue overnight. And while I've been doing a lot of webinars, I've been doing a lot of seminars and stuff, when you do it online, it's very rare that people pay for it. So, you know, whereas normally people would pay $300 or $400 to go to an event in America, they come online for free. So while I've still been using my craft, I haven't been getting an income from it. But what I have done is I've just pulled up at home here, and I've just been doing a lot of coaching and counseling around trauma and around people reinventing themselves, feeling good about themselves and stuff like that. But I think the biggest challenge is that for the people that don't have maybe a secondary income, or they didn't have a lot of money behind them. I was fortunate enough to be at an age where that wasn't for me like that. But I know I've dealt with a lot of small businesses that are literally living on JobKeeper. And while $3,000 is generous, it's not always enough to run a business and a family on, you know. So I think financially is probably the biggest issue for most coaches and speakers.
Yeah, that's a really, I think everybody's feeling the sting. And like you said, while we've been very lucky in this country to have some support from our government, it certainly is putting pressure on people that are used to having their business income and being able to support their family and not having any of that. So, Tracey, I'd love to know what you think. So you're in, you know, your stuff is really, you're in that personal service space. It's a lot of the work that you do is actually really intimate, I would say, with a lot of the clients that you work with. And I'd love to know, because we do have people in personal service, what's the one mistake you think people make in this industry that could potentially derail their career?
When you're working with people, I think the greatest gift you have to have is detachment, and to truly understand it and be able to live with it. Because in any one day, I can see stories that you girls wouldn't believe. I could have you in tears. You're all heart-based women in heart-based businesses. We could all be crying together within 4 or 5 minutes because, you know, there's people out there that are hurting and people out there that truly do need our help. So I think the most important thing is just to have that detachment, knowing that you are at your best to help people when you're able to stay outside of their story, when you're able to just really sit in your strength and your beauty of knowing that your strength comes from your own story. So while you can identify, you don't fall apart with them, because a lot of small business people end up with heart disease, they end up being overweight, they end up being stressed out because they don't understand that. For me, and this might sound terrible to you girls, but truly when the session's done, I have a bit of a ritual where I just take 10 minutes before the next one and I really detach, knowing that that's their life and their story, and that as much as I can help, what they do with that is completely up to them.
Great tip, especially for those personal services. I think it's quite heavy, some of the work. And I know that in the Raw Awards this year, we've had some amazing women and men in business who are doing that really heavy work. And it's not work that I potentially could do myself, but those really heart-centered business owners. So a great tip in kind of disconnecting in that. So you did mention, Tracey, that you're a woman of many years experience. We won't say how many years, but I'd love to know how you continue to develop yourself and develop your skills, and some of the tips and tricks you have around that to keep yourself, I guess, still loving what you do, because you've done it for such a long time. What are some of those things that you do to keep yourself up to date?
I think you have to have two things. If you want to be in this for longevity, there needs to be two things that play in your life. The first one needs to be that you truly have a definitive passion that never changes, that you hold true to it. If you started something to fix the economy or to fix the universe or to fix our problem with waste or to help people that are going through abuse or to help children, whatever it is, get it definitive and hold on to it. For me, it has always been that I want every person to be able to have a life that they deserve. And if they come across my path, I will do whatever I can to be part of that for them. I also believe that for women that are doing life at the level that you girls are doing it at, you have to have a table of 6. You have to have people in your life that hold you. I have women at my table that are all doing more than me, earning more than me, getting ahead more than me, and they come from all around the world. But I log in with those girls regularly and keep myself in check. And they are the first to champion me, they're the first to challenge me, they're the first to support me. And as most of you would see on my Facebook just recently, sometimes stuff comes home to you, and my youngest daughter is battling cervical cancer. I have another daughter that's just lost a baby that she was never meant to conceive, and she now has to have a hysterectomy. So, we're going through a little bit on our own, and that when that shows up on top of business, you have to have that table where women like yourselves are there to champion and to support and to help and to just make it work, because you cannot do this on your own. You really cannot, not for longevity. I've been in it 30 years. I've got about 15 to go. And before I exit out and just do whatever the hell I want. But you have to have a team, and you have to make sure they're women that just inspire the crap out of you and make you get up every day wanting to be better.
Love it. Tracey, can I just say you're one of those women to me?
Oh,
and I truly mean that.
Yeah.
And I really am a big believer in what you just said, when it's nice to have people around you when everything's great. The friends that come over when your life's great, and they can benefit from your network, and they can benefit from your business, and they can benefit from, you personally. Yeah. But you really do know the people that have your back when the shit hits the fan, and you really do need the right people. Yeah. So that, and we talked about it, I think it was last year, and we were talking about the energy that you give people. And I think you have a great filter with people where you can read somebody's energy really well. But I think for a lot of people, sometimes you're busy or you're distracted, or you meet somebody through somebody else and you think they might be your right person. Do you have any advice around how to find the right people for you? Because everybody is so different that your people that are around you wouldn't necessarily be the right people for somebody else. So how do you go about finding these people?
My biggest key, I think, is to connect logistically connected. Like, Facebook is fantastic, but it's not always true. And, there's many people on there saying they're doing something and they're not. So, if you are drawn to somebody, then my greatest advice to you is to meet them, to hang out with them, to watch them, to get to know them, to do things like this. I think for me, over the years, I learned a lot about people by just being around people. And, back in my day, when I was your age doing life and doing business, we didn't have media. So we were doing a lot of networking, and there was the yellow pages, which is where we all advertised and stuff that you girls think is funny now. But it kind of created the skill where we learned how to read people, and we learned how to hang out with people. And I think, it blows me away how many times I go to events and people are on their phones and they're on social media. Just don't do that. Like, I was in England just last year, and I paid £125 to attend this dinner where I was speaking, and so had everybody else at my table. Now, the 4 ladies at my table, one of them made handbags, one of them made shoes, one of them taught people in prisons in India how to sew, and the other one did something else. But what it was the 4 things they did was, like, I could have sold that stuff left, right, and center. Like, you should see how many handbags and shoes I've got. And I tried to engage these women 4 times. 4 times. I asked them about their families, asked them how their day had been. I asked them all sorts of stuff, and not once did they look up from their phones. And the incredible thing was that the girl that was late to the table actually worked for Facebook. And I said to her, what do you do? And she sort of engaged me, and I said, oh, your boss will be happy. And she said, that was never why Facebook was created. And I said, these people missed out on business today. Because, when you get to my age, I've got a lot of friends that have got plenty of disposable income. If you've got a handbag range, if you've got a range of, like, we're buying from you, right? We're looking for fun stuff to do. And I sort of talked about that. And I ended up actually speaking at the Facebook breakfast the next day. But the reality is that the only way to really know who your people are is actually to touch them.
With permission. No, I'm joking.
Yes.
We don't recommend walking into a network room and going around touching everybody. Well, you can't in Victoria anyway, because we're still in lockdown. So
yeah, no, you can't either. Yeah.
No, I love that. Tracey, what in your career, is there a moment where you think you understood or you learnt the secret to your own success? Do you think there's a formula for each person, or do you think there's a moment where your own success became obvious to you? Was there a time or an event or something that happened where you thought, okay, I've made it, I'm good?
I'm kind of, until we have global change around some really big things, I'm never going to feel like that in my heart. But I think for me, my eldest daughter at 16 got raped, and the result of that was she became pregnant. And so overnight, my world changed. I had to come to terms with the fact I was going to be a grandmother at 42. And I had to come to terms with the fact that my daughter had been raped and I'd missed it. Me, of all people, the woman that stands up and talks about sexual abuse and how to protect yourself, missed it happening next door to me. So it flattened me. It took me out for about 4 weeks. And you guys know, when we're running businesses, you can't be out for 4 weeks. So I was on autopilot. I was just locked and loaded. But what I learned through that was a really valuable lesson. And if you don't hear anything else I say today, learn this. Business has no personality. It has no definition. It is all about management. You have personality and definition. And when I learned how to manage my business, and I learned that it was just a set of management and leadership skills, my business didn't own me. It didn't have a personality. It served a purpose. And I was actually the person to protect, because in the end of the day, I was the valuable thing. Because we often think, we've got this business and it's making 40 grand a month or 40 grand a year or whatever it is, and we've got to protect it. No, you've got to protect you. You're actually making that money. You're making that money by managing and looking after that business. And when I learnt that, I have never had one day of bad business or bad business stress since.
I really like that point. I think that's my takeaway from today. You really have to look after yourself. And I think we've really been forced almost to do that in the last, year that we've had in Australia. I think a lot of us, we were talking about it. You've been forced to look inwards. You've been forced to sit with your own brain chatter, because you can't keep yourself busy anymore. Our busy stopped, especially in places like Victoria, where we are being restricted and our freedoms seem to be taken away. You are really having to sit with your own shit, for lack of a better word.
Do you want to hear an interesting stat? In June, worldwide, they recorded 67% less premature births worldwide. 18 countries reported the same stats within 2 points. So doesn't that just show you that when women slowed down, they de-stressed? 67% of premature births declined. So 67% more women went full term just by being at home and working from home at a slower pace.
Yeah, that I did actually hear that, and I just thought if anything was going to come out that was a positive, it's that people are more relaxed and have the time, even if you've had to sort of figure out how that fits for you if you're typically busy. So Tracey, I would love for you to tell the group, if you could go back, if I could put you in a time machine right now and zip you back to the beginning of when you started your career, what would you change, or what advice would you give yourself?
I don't think I'd change a lot, because I'm a big believer in the lessons that I've got are the lessons that I was meant to have. But the one thing I would tell myself is don't take it so seriously. Don't stress. Don't stress. If you understand what you're doing and you put in management and leadership principles, it will work. I would have nights in my early stages wondering how I was going to pay staff, and I'd have nights freaking out about having to tell someone they're not performing, or I'd freak out about having to go on stage and speak. And whereas now I just relax into it. And I think if I could tell myself anything, I'd tell myself, you're going to grow into this. It's going to be okay. Just take a really deep breath. Don't try and do everything overnight. Just understand it's going to all come to fruition. Because, I'm in my late 50s and I look back, Danielle, and I think it went so fast. you know, it went so fast. You know, my youngest daughter is 25, my eldest is 31. I'm thinking, this went so fast. You know, I've got a teenage grandchild. And I think when you're young, you don't think like that, because every day there's so much to fit into it, but it actually goes fast. So if I was going to tell myself anything, I'd say, girlfriend, you just enjoy it. Just slow down and enjoy it and stop stressing, because you're going to learn along the way. You're going to be successful. You have to be when you apply principles of management and leadership. So just relax and enjoy it.
So well spoken, Tracey. I know how that feels, because I've had that conversation with people around me recently where I feel like I'm getting older, and I'm 39 this year, so turning 40 next year, and just seems like it's the quickening. And you're right, because when you compare your life to other people, or you try and compare your career or your business or your family or your, you know, income or whatnot, it's really easy to get stuck in that you're not doing it. It's, you know, and trying to run the race and trip yourself over to get somewhere you're not even sure you're going. So I really like that. Take your time, do it your way. Yeah, love it. All right, so I took you back. Now I'd love to take you forward. Where do you think the industry, your industry in that space will be? What will it look? What do you think it'll look like in 5 to 10 years?
I don't often think about my industry because I'm so busy doing my own thing. I guess, you know, I have a little bit of a maverick heart. I think I don't fit anywhere, and I kind of don't want to. Obviously, in our project management and bookkeeping businesses, we do think like that because they're logistical businesses with logistical people. And as you already know, all that's online. The staff we have in our bookkeeping business, they're all logging into other people's computers. It's way above my head now. You know, I was doing manual ledgers at their age. But as far as my business goes with, you know, traceyhorton.com, I think the future is really different and not different at all. And what I mean by that is, I think there's going to be a lot more online stuff. I'm actually launching the crux of my business online December 5th, because I can't get back into the States where I should be right now for a little while. But I also think that people will always want to do life together. I think people will always want to learn from each other. And so I think if COVID-19's taught us anything, it's taught us that relationships are as important, because the people that have coped with COVID are the people that understand what relationships are like the baby boomers. They haven't stressed about it. It's all the young people. I've been seeing a lot of young people with anxiety and depression because they can't keep up the connections. You know, people are falling off Facebook. I know for me, you know, when my daughter got diagnosed just, you know, 9 weeks ago with cervical cancer, we were all just off Facebook for a week, coming to terms with that and how it looked, and because it's pretty serious. So, you know, I think for that, I think the future looks pretty much, I always say to my kids, it looks however you want it to. And that's really what I believe. I believe the future is exciting. I believe the universe fully supports us. I believe there's still 100 million things we can achieve and do. I think there's things still to be invented, people still to be helped. So my future looks exactly however I dream it up to be. And so for me, it's all about legacy. It's about teaching and helping and supporting younger people to do more, so that when I do exit out at 70 and travel the world for fun with my gorgeous grandsons, pretty much everybody else will be just flowing on and doing what I've been doing.
I hope we can travel, Trace. I hope you can do the whole world and drag those gorgeous little grandsons around with you, keeping all my fingers and toes crossed.
I will. If all else fails, I'll buy a boat. I'll just buy a boat.
Yes.
No COVID on the water.
Tracey May Horton Express.
Yeah, that's right.
No, I love it. I'd love to ask you some of the resources that you could recommend for people in your industry or in the personal services industry. What are some really good resources that you have used or that you could recommend to the people in the group?
My first advice, and I've been saying this for ages, is that, you know, when COVID-19 hit, a lot of us older coaches and mentors made ourselves available. We went online and said, hey, if you guys are struggling, because, you know, it's different for me. You know, COVID-19 hit, and it pretty much meant that the bookkeeping business didn't change because it was all online anyway. Project management didn't change because people had time to do renovations. So, you know, and people started wanting to see me. So what I was saying is that a lot of people with great understanding and resource are making themselves available, giving up an hour of their time for free. You know, if you've got a question, ask someone who has the answer. And in Australia, because there's this beautiful camaraderie in Australia that I don't see in any other country in the world, where if someone's down, people get in and help. Boy, oh boy, can they look after each other in Australia. So first thing I would suggest is find some of these people that are offering it. You know, people like Tracy Mathers, myself, you know, people that have proven track records are offering you half an hour to an hour. And, you know, in that time, a good qualified long-term mentor can give you the answers. So that's the first resource you should all be doing, is logging into that, finding those people, because there's a lot of them around. And at Demption, the Audacious Agency, they're offering you, you know, most people are offering you advice, because we're well aware that people have now got to watch what they spend, you know, and a lot of people are doing this very genuinely. It's not about upselling you into any of our classes or courses, because most of us are too busy anyway. It's really just about making that time. I always allow 1 day a week pro bono, where I will just help people that cannot afford me, because I'm a big believer in everybody should be helped. You know, my husband has taught my children since the day they could sit up, is that you've never looked into the eyes of someone who doesn't matter next to the person beside them. And so, you know, they have met Russell Crowe, they have met, you know, Jimmy Barnes, they've met, you know, Adam Brand's a personal family friend, but we've also fed the homeless at least, you know, every Christmas we do it, and at least 5 times a year. So there's that real balance in our family around that. So that's my first thing. The second thing is, you know, there's a lot of good books out. There's a lot of great stuff out there. But I think the most important thing is work out what you want to know. Work out what the real question is. Because sometimes people just feel it. You know, you can feel like something's going on. I don't know really what it is. And that's what happened with my daughter. She just said, Mum, my body's not right. And I said, go to a doctor. And, you know, the thing with cervical cancer is it's painless. So she could have just said, no, I won't go. But she could feel her body changing. So we got to it, and we got to it, I believe, early enough, and that we're going to have a beautiful testimony to tell you all shortly. But, you know, just last week at 25, she had a hysterectomy. And so, you know, we were sitting together just the other day, and, you know, she's really emotional about that, because she has an autistic son and another daughter, and she was never having any more children, but now she can't. And she's one of these people, you can't say no to her. So, you know, she has all these emotions bottling up, as well as the fact her body's adjusting to losing all its reproductive organs at a very young age. And so I just said to her, you know, work out what the real issue is. What is it that's really bothering you? And she finally came down to, what if one of them goes and I can't have another child? That was the real issue. So once she knew that, she could deal with it. So in business, I always say to people, what is it you're really thinking? Are you worried about money? Or can you actually cope with less income? You're worried about whether your product matters. Do you actually feel like it's time to change? Do you actually feel like you're not differentiating enough from your clients, and you're carrying them to the point where you're possibly going to have a breakdown? Like, what is the question? And once you know the question, ask it to somebody who can help you, because there's a bunch of us out there that are pro bono right now to help and support you all through this time.
Great advice. Brilliant advice. I think a lot of people get really nervous, don't they, when for some people it's easy. Like, I've found LinkedIn being really helpful during this period, because I've had access to people that normally would be really busy. Busy's been the word, but aren't busy because things are on pause and things have been, you know, brought back home, or people are in restrictions. So I've been able to reach out to people who have been on my hit list for a little while and just sort of taken the punt and gone, I'm going to message that person today. Yeah. And it's amazing. Then the conversation starts to open and the door swings open. And I think now's a really good opportunity to talk to people, because we all have common, you know, issue. Everybody's got something they can talk about on equal ground. Everybody's been affected by what's going on in the world. And so it's a great opener. Thought you might just be cozy on the couch watching Netflix and chills, just wanted to slide into your DMs and have a little chat about something. So I think it's great advice, and I think you're an amazing networker. I've seen you in full action, and you really do take the opportunity to listen and ask the right questions, I think, to really understand the person that you're speaking with. So It's a great tip. So Tracy, I'd love for you to just share. I'm going to swing it open to people who can ask you a question and pick your amazing brain juice while we've got you. How people can stay in contact with you or connect with you after this session.
Okay, so if I'm honest, girls, I outsource my social media because I still don't really understand it. But I know how social media works. So you can always DM me. I have a really great team around me. So it doesn't matter whether you DM me, whether you get on my website and send me an email, whatever you do, it gets to me. And my rule is it has to get to me within 3 hours. So if it's later than that, somebody in my office has to explain why. Because I have a lot of people normally that by the time they get to me, they're at their end. So I like to touch base personally with that. And normally if they have to get to me within 3 hours, then sometimes I can't drop what I'm doing. So pretty much we have the same day response. So you can pretty much do it through a PM, through Facebook, a DM through Instagram, I believe it is, LinkedIn. I'm all over social media. You can contact me 100 ways. My website, www.traceyhorton.com, you can email me there. And like I said, I have staff that are just doing that stuff. And, so you won't always get the initial response from me, but you will always, if you want to speak to me, you will hear from me. I do a lot of personal contact. I don't put that off to anyone else.
I'll pop your details too for everyone
cool.
who's trying to scramble to write.
Cool. Yeah,
I'll pop those details in the group as well so that you can connect with Tracy after this.
Awesome.
This may open everyone to want to jump in quickly, but we've got 20 minutes. So if anyone has a question for Tracy that they would like to ask, feel free to unmute and just pop your hand up so I can see you, or just jump in so you can ask. Who's going to go first? Oh, they're a bit quiet. Candace, I think, has jumped on.
It's me. Hi, Tracy.
Hi, Candace.
I'm driving around, so for half the session you just saw my logo, but everything you're saying resonates with me so much. I'm hearing you, and I'm hearing my own voice in part of what you're saying in terms of self-care. And I just was wondering, you talked about mentorship, but would you consider supervision?
I do have supervision with a highly qualified friend of mine who has a psych degree and a few other things, for one reason and one reason only. I come from a Polynesian culture, so my family is very big to me. And on top of that, I've added a huge life. So for me, I have supervision so I don't burn out, because I'm the girl that never stops. So I think, yes.
Would you be a supervisor?
Yeah, I supervise a couple of different people because I'm a big believer in this. Women need supervision because they never stop. Most women are like me. They see a world, they want to help. They then turn around and the kids are behind them. So absolutely. And I think supervision is really, really important, because if you burn out, there's no gain in that.
No.
There's no gain in that at all. No. Yeah.
Yes, I will be in touch then.
Love to
connect.
Yeah. Love what you do.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Hi.
Hi, Tracy.
I thought she was waving. Hi, Julia.
No, I am. I'm waving with a hand up question, but
all yours, Julia.
I'll give a wave. Yay. So, Tracy, thank you so much for all of that. That was really beneficial, especially your comment about the premature babies really, really floored me. Like, that to me was huge, and just how fast-paced we are all moving is astounding, and we don't realise it until we're forced to slow down. So that to me was a huge statistic. My next question to you is, how do you manage so many people? You've got this huge team working with you and working for you, and how do you make sure that they're all on track, doing the right thing, communicating with you, communicating properly, doing the jobs that they have to do without necessarily breathing down their necks? How do you manage that?
Okay. So I've got 2 keys for you, beautiful young ladies. The first thing is, when you're running a business, you need to be very clear on the 5 things that you should do and make sure you only do them. So for me, one of them is staff management. So when it comes to staff, I'm a big believer in paying good money for top qualifications. Because here's the thing, if I have got friends who have got VAs in the Philippines, they're paying $4.95 to, and I say to them, stop it, because they are fixing up all the English, they're correcting everything. I've got a VA on call, and if I say to her, I need something done, it'll cost me, say, $70, but I tell you what, it can go straight to print. That woman knows me, she gets me, she's perfect at it. So you know what, it's more than $4.95, but it's perfect. So it takes pressure off me. So the first thing I would say is work out what it is that you're good at and outsource the rest. And when you outsource it, find people that are really good at it. Because a lot of people, a lot of VAs are happy to just be on call. You know, like I have staff that work for me full time, but I have others that are just on call. And for them, you just always say, go looking for the best, because in the long run, saves you a truckload of money. And the idea about looking after people is this: if people are happy working for you, they will be highly productive. So of the 5 things I do in my business, one of them is staff management, and I know where they're at. So if they have got problems at home, I know about it. If they're problems I can fix, I fix it. One of the things that happens if you work at traceyhorton.com is you're part of a family. So if you're struggling to eat, you will have food in your cupboards, because if you're hungry, you're not working for me at your top rate. And if it's something that's ongoing because you can't fix that issue, you will be helped to fix that issue. You know, because you feed somebody for a month out of grace, and then you teach them to work out why the hell they can't feed themselves in a country where everybody lives above the poverty line, right? So that's how you do it. Does that help you?
That's fantastic. Thank you so much.
You're
Absolutely.
welcome.
That means a lot. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone going to jump on? Has anyone else got questions? I'm more than happy to ask Tracey on your behalf as well. So you're more than welcome. I think Maya's just jumped in. All yours, Maya.
Thank you. It's lovely to see everyone's smiling faces as well today. Tracey, I've loved listening to you and taking so many great messages, and your positivity is fantastic. It really, it gave me goosebumps a few times when you were speaking. One of the things that I find tricky is that switching off of the business me. So as a writer, I'm always thinking of different plot points. I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm thinking of writing. When I wake up in the morning, I'm thinking, right, I better get my social media posts sorted for today. And the kids are getting off ready for school, making lunches. And I'm thinking, come on, hurry up at the door. I've got work to do. How do you do that juggle of switching off and remembering, right, I've got a whole life outside of my professional life, and here's the divide, and I'm not thinking about that anymore. I'd love some suggestions on that.
So this year I had to bring my office home. I had offices, and we had to we gave them up because the person sold the building, and I didn't want to buy the building, so I gave up my offices. So I bought my office home. So I have a designated office, and my grandchildren don't play in that because that's traceyhorton.com, and I've literally made it like another country. So when I go to work, I open the door, and when I finish work, I close the door. That door's never open while I'm watching TV or cooking dinner. So sorry. And I cut a really strong divide because, like you said, when you have people that need you to be something other than a business person, they need their time with you too. So that when that door's shut, people know traceyhorton.com has finished. And that's kind of like my thing. So I never dump my handbag in there. I always show up as a business person. So I think probably having something really definitive like that for you, it's difficult for you because you're highly creative in what you do. You wouldn't be a writer if you weren't fully creative. So your issues are really mind balance rather than work-life balance. Your house I can see is perfectly groomed, so you obviously can control your life. I guess for me, because I write a lot too, so for me, I've learned to just go with the flow. When it's on, it's on, and I just really make that. So probably my suggestion to you would be to get people to help you in your life so that when the flow is on, you can do it. And not feel guilty about that. There are times I don't go to events with my family. There are times that I have a cleaner. I have somebody who cooks for me, because there's times I can't do that. And I've had to learn to get comfortable with that, believe it or not, because Polynesian girls do everything. But also, I think, just give yourself, work out what it is that you need. If you need to be able to flow, then on the days that you flow, you have to have somebody on call that could pick up the kids from school, or could make dinner, or something like that.
Thank you. That's really good.
Cool.
Maya, now you need to create Maya's world in your house. You need to find that space.
Yeah.
The only problem with my office is it's an open. So we have to walk through my office to get upstairs to our bedroom, and it's open plan, this bit, which is a 9th floor. But
I would buy a big pot plant or a room divider, because walking past that is putting your creative juices into flow right when you're going to bed. Yeah, that's hard work for anybody, especially someone who's highly creative like you. So put something there that visually distracts you.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea, like Danielle's divider behind her.
Yeah, yep, something like that, yep. Or a nice big plant or something that
covers all my paperwork and crazy behind me. So when I'm doing this, I don't have to think about that. Yeah. But it does help. That psyche really does help. And I actually think, Tracey, you gave me that tip as well about separating, because I was very similar, Maya, where because I work from home, I would travel off to different things and different expos and things, but I was always walking past my computer, and it would trigger me into going, I'm just going to check my email. I'm just going to do this social media post. I'm just going, but I wasn't working productively, and I wasn't working well. I was working scrambled, chaotic, and really fast, and working really fast is not the best that you can do. So yeah, I did the same. I just hide everything that's not, needed right now, or conducive, or I'm not ready for what's behind there. That's got to wait till I am ready, and then I can pull it down and go, okay, I'm going to work through this application, or I'm going to work on the raw submissions, or I'm going to email all the judges. But I no longer do scrambled working, and I'm fairly confident you gave me that tip, Tracey.
It is one of my big ones.
Yeah.
Right.
Because when you're working from home, it's very hard to draw the lines. You have to literally draw a line. And so for me, I took over one of the rooms, made it work. And so literally it is a different city. It really is. This room, this office, this workplace.
TraceyHorton.com.
Yeah, that's right.
.au. Is it .au?
No, just .com.
Just .com. Love it. Does anyone else have a question while we've got Tracey on? I'm waiting to see if the microphone drops out. I have a question for you while we're waiting, but if you have another question while you're here, feel free to unmute. Tracey, one thing that you are exceptionally good at is creating a calm to your business. And I think when people hear you speak, you're very calmly confident. So do you have any tips on how to descramble the way that you might pitch your business? And particularly when you're new in business or you're excited in your business, sometimes, when you meet somebody, you get really rambly and your pitch is all over the place and you're too full on, or how do you work on your skill to develop that really? Because when you meet somebody, you are so calmly confident is the way I would describe you. And people instantly you see shoulders drop and people warm and lean into you when you speak. But I've seen other people, when they meet people, sort of pull back and, look for the out. And how do you work on that? Because it is a skill.
Yeah. So it's a couple of things. First of all, I'm a big believer in the universe fully supports me. Scientists have proven that at the dawn of every day, which is 2 to 4 a.m. before the world slows down and it rejuvenates, and during that time, you can hear creation. You can hear all of the natural created things like the plants and everything. You can hear them making a soft groaning noise, and it sounds like a woman in childbirth. And so they've come to this conclusion that, and a lot of religious people believe this too, that creation has everything that's entitled to you. So for me, I learned a long time ago to sit in the comfort that my life will be everything it's meant to be. And some of that is dependent on me, and some of that will just be pure gift. And that I don't have to fight Danielle, Rebecca, Maya, Julie, or anybody else to get that job or to get that person or to get that client or to make those sales. That if I just truly stay in my lane and be exactly who I am and be truly authentic about that, but also you can never underestimate the gift that you have when you truly want to work with people. Every person I meet, I consider a pleasure to meet them. I love people, and I want people to remember that when they met me, they felt better about themselves when they left. You know, I do random acts of kindness every day because I just love to give people a great feeling in life. And when you understand your authenticness and you play to that, then it does have that beautifully deep calming effect. I'm not about competing with anyone else, because the people that want to work with Tracey Horton aren't going to need to necessarily work with those others. But the ones that want them, they're not going to get me anyway. I'm deeply heart-centered. I ask the big questions. If you know, when people work with me, they always say to me, "My goodness, Tracey, we had no idea we were going to deal with that." You know, I exited out a young girl yesterday who's 29. She has a very strong brain injury and she had no social skills. So the parents paid me a fairly large sum of money to help her in 10 weeks learn some social skills, because her brother got engaged and she couldn't deal with it. So she was sabotaging it and being quite violent. And in that time, what I discovered was, because she had this brain injury and was different, she'd been rejected from the time she was 5. So when I helped her learn that people only reject you if you reject yourself, when I taught her self-love, she was transformed overnight. So I think, you know, when you understand what it is that you're good at, like I wouldn't teach anybody about social media because I pay someone to do it. I'm not that mentor. So, you know, if you start talking about that, I'm going to be telling you who to contact. You know, I don't know how to make products. I don't make my own skincare range or anything like that. And so, you know, I really think when you stay in your own lane and when you play to your own authenticity, and for me, I spent so much of my early life being so unloved and unvalued that when I got that, when I learned that for myself, it became so freaking real that now I just love people, and I don't make excuses for it. People always say to me, "You don't promote yourself." And I said, you know, the women looking for me, they're going to get that. They're just going to get it, because sometimes you don't need someone telling you that you need to talk about something.
Well, Tracey Horton, I can say, hand to my heart, you are the real deal. Thank you so much for your time today, and for coming on board again to be a 2020 Raw Judge. You are exactly what this awards is all about, and I cannot wait to run our event and name our top 5. But I really appreciate all the hard work. Tracey's got a category that is quite big and quite fierce this year, so she has her work cut out for her.
Yes.
Just very quickly on the last thing, I guess everybody that's entered the Raw Awards this year, you know, they're really hanging and hoping that they make that top 5 when we reveal it on the website. But do you have any advice on how to deal with disappointment if you don't make the top 5, and understanding the process and, you know, being part of it and things? So if they don't make the top 5, what would your advice be? Because as a judge, you see how fierce it is on the application process, but I guess for everyone else, because we don't reveal that, it can be quite hard sometimes to take, though I didn't make the top 5. So
you know, the category I'm judging, I would love to give you all the award, because there isn't a story I read that doesn't bring tears to my eyes, because there isn't a woman that's been nominated that isn't doing more than she should, that isn't doing it better than she should, but the reality is that you have to come down to a scoring process. So it's never that you didn't win, it's that somebody's story at that moment resonated differently. And I think that that's a really important thing to understand, but it's also important to understand that by even entering the awards, you've come into my field of vision, you've come into other, you know, important people's field of vision. So when I wrote my book, I self-published, and I self-published for one reason. I wanted to give away a copy for every copy that's sold. So every woman that's ever bought my book has had a copy given in her name, not mine, to a woman who cannot afford it, who is hiding in DV, who is sexually abused, who is under the poverty line. And that was my goal, to do that. And to this day, I still do that. And so I got nominated for an award in India, and I went on stage, and I was on stage with 10 women. And these women were doing stuff like, one woman was feeding 450,000 children a year in South Africa. Another woman was giving all of her time pro bono to African-American women who'd been abused in the Bronx. These women were changing the world. One woman was rescuing children, and I'd written a book. And I felt so inadequate on that moment. And I got up and I thought, I've only got one choice here, and that's to be real. So I stood up and I said, I have a story of being deeply abused by 12 men before I was 12. And I was born into a home with a schizophrenic father, and my story, while it isn't all bad, it was rough at the beginning. And I wrote this book. And I want to stand here and tell you, because I'm so in awe of the women I'm sharing the stage with, that I had this big reason. But my reason, really, if I'm honest with you, is because my daughter got raped, and one day my granddaughter, who's a result of rape, is just going to need to read that her nana found a way out. And with that, my voice broke, and I just said, so thank you all for reading it. And I hope as you read it, you always find that person that's going to need it. And unbeknown to me, the lady that was running the event, Dr. Harbeen Arora, who never left her chair, was behind me. And as I turned to sit down, thinking, I hope I was adequate enough in the presence of these women, she was there and she said, Tracey, turn back, and every single woman was on their feet. From that moment, I got 19 bookings in 19 different countries. Different women came to me and said, I want to know you, I want to hear you. And in that time, in that stuff that I did, I raised funds to help the other women sitting on that stage. So never underestimate just being on the stage, because that's transformative. That's enough. The fact that you were nominated, the fact that I'm reading your story, that is phenomenal. That puts you in the top 5%. Yes, we have to choose someone. But if they don't think for a second that these judges, we aren't wanting to choose you all.
You're amazing, Tracey. And as Michelle just said then, thank you for sharing your story, especially about your daughter. It's so real, raw, and authentic. It's exactly how I describe you. Mel just said you're incredible, goosebumps, lovely and uplifting. Thank you. So thank you so much again, Tracey. Really appreciate your time. I know that everyone's going to walk away from this session today just feeling like they know you, that they want to know you more. So I will put the details up to stay in touch with Tracey. Really appreciate it. Have a fabulous day. I can't wait to connect with you when we do our Raw Awards event. And thank you again. You're awesome.
Pleasure.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to close this session off, launch the next session with Jennifer Holdstock. So you're more than welcome to log out and log back in. But love you, Tracey. You're awesome.
Thanks. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.